Yay, yay. Hello, and welcome to This Week Magnet Marketers. It's Training Tuesday Live, and we're excited to be back. I was out last week. We're going to talk about that today with a Tony Robbins Business Mastery recap. Just some of my favorite takeaways, some things I think any brand can really take advantage of, some of these knowledge bombs that were shared. Definitely won't even be able to touch the tip of the iceberg with everything, but I promise you'll get a lot out of the show if you stick with us today. So before we dive in, though not met before, I want to introduce myself and I want you to introduce yourself to me. Drop it in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event, I would love to hear that. But hello, my name is Jessika Phillips with Now Marketing Group in the Relationship Marketing System. And my awesome co-host, he's Mike Gingerich. He's the president of Digital Hill and the co-founder of the popular app Loftio, Tabsite, published author extraordinaire, kind of working on 2 extra books right now. Man is crazy awesome. So good to see you, Mike. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing well, and looking forward to this. Good to be back in the saddle with you here and talking with the crew. So hopefully people announce themselves and looking forward to this because we all need to. It's 2020. We all need to grow. We all need to learn, right? And how do we sharpen ourselves as business owners, business leaders, marketers? It's all about moving forward.
Always be learning, right? Is that what they say?
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly that way. So, Mike, have you ever been to a Tony Robbins event?
I have not. No, okay. I have not. So
I hadn't either. This was actually my first one. I was trying to share this, but I'll just share it later. But this was my first one too. And hey, Amy, good to see you here. I'm excited that you're excited to hear all about this, by the way. Let us know, have you ever been to a Tony Robbins event? But this was my first one. I actually just heard about it a few weeks before I left.
Okay.
And it was kind of like an interview process. You had to go through a couple interview stages and like the ads target you somehow. And I did some research and I was like, I've heard a lot about the Date with Destiny, which that one I definitely want to do. Okay. And I heard some great things about that, but I hadn't heard anything about the business mastery. So I went through some interview processes and then signed up to go. And this one was in West Palm Beach, Florida last week. It was Tuesday through Sunday.
Through Sunday.
And 12-hour days. It was like a business boot camp. I'm not even exaggerating. It was awesome. Like best thing and hardest thing, like a hardest event. I thought like all these other conferences we go to, it's like, it's so intense. We go to all these classes and then, we do dinner after and then the parties. And this was like in the room at conference. I was like, when are we doing the lunch break? He was like, what lunch break? You just run out when you can to get some food and come back in. And so they were for real all about the business.
Got it. Yeah. No, I haven't been. Heard a lot of good things, and like you said, there's another one too. So there's a couple different types that he offers, right?
Yeah, I think there's Unleash the Giant or something like that, and then Date with Destiny, and there may be a few more. Those are just the 2 that I had heard about before. Yep. But he does quite a few events all over. It seems like he must have like homes in California and Florida, so those are like the primary. And then he has some land, his own island in Fiji. So I think he does some events there. He's just roughing it, I'm saying. But I would have to say that he is the real deal, and how the conference was set up. And I definitely want to share some of the takeaways from the event, but I want to kind of set the stage a little bit here. Okay. With some of the things I was super impressed with being an event organizer and runner myself.
Yes.
So how this is, he keeps the room really cold. And they told me that before I came. And I was like, great, I'll be comfortable, right? Like usually I'm sweating in the office, everybody else is freezing. And I'm like, I'll be comfortable. So I'm like, Florida, I'm kind of wearing like what I have on. No, this man has it cold. Like I bought a blanket, a Tony Robbins blanket, because of course he was selling them there to keep everybody awake. That wasn't what I was impressed by, but that was something that stood out. But how the conference is set up is it really does feel like a full on experience. There's lights, there's music. It's super high energy, and he gets people enrolled into the process. What I mean by that is it's not so much like a scripted presentation, but he definitely had a plan we got our little book, our workbook here, all the things that we're going to cover. And it was the whole goal of the event is business mastery. So going through all the things that you need to not only survive in business, but thrive in it and have a plan. So separating why businesses, 96% of businesses don't make it past 10 years, which I did not know that stat. And I'm so thankful that 10 years is what we're celebrating here at Now Marketing Group. And 96% of businesses don't make it that far. 96%. He was saying that it's never been easier to start a business, but never been harder and only going to get harder for people to capture attention and leads in business now because of what we've been talking about in here, dark social, right? And just so much noise online. So he sets it up not only to do the conversation around this, to do some true planning around it, but also taking time to enroll in real stories around the room. So everybody, even though this was one of his smaller events, you know,
and when you say smaller, what's an estimate?
Okay, so typically his events are like 10,000, 6,000 people. This one was under 1,000. I don't want to guess wrong, but it was under 1,000 people. And so you really got to know a lot of people though, because he, like I said, he's enrolling people around the room, and then we split up in groups and worked on our business as team members. So got split up into, there was like 30 different teams or something like that. And each of us worked on a business together, like planning like if we were doing a real business, kind of using these new techniques. And some of them are real businesses that started there and raised funds and everything. It was really cool how that played out. So not only is he doing this, and it feels very connected. What I was super impressed with too is how he took it to the next level as far as keeping the energy up. You would think 12 hours, like usually if I'm in a room, even in some of the presentations for 45 minutes, like I'm antsy, right? Like I'm like ADHD, I want to move and do stuff. But he really connected you with story and the same things that he's preaching. And we're going to break down some of these takeaways here today of what I really enjoyed, but with the story and then enrolling you into how you could adapt it and plan your actions right away. And then every 2 hours or so, it was like movement. He was very a firm believer on connecting mentally, physically, spiritually into the process. And that made all the difference. Everybody was dancing. I actually shared a couple clips. If anybody caught it on my Instagram, if we're connected there, I'm like, you know, your conference is crazy good on your third day if people are dancing to Backstreet Boys at 9 a.m. in the morning, like full on breaking down dancing after 12-hour days, the past 2 days before it, right? And we're talking about accounting that day, okay? So, you know, it was good. But so that's just kind of set the stage of the event. Definitely not promoting, you know, or paid to promote it or in any way, just kind of telling you my experience. I did recommend it, and I will go out on a limb and say it was one of the best investments I've done in the business so far today, surprisingly.
Excellent. All right. So he kept the energy up. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, 12 hours and like, so, you know, let's say Saturday morning, because you'd already been there a few days. Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. How did he drive the energy to get people going?
Oh, I'm trying to remember who was there Saturday. So we did have some other speakers come in. Well, first they're getting text messages. So he's like, bring all your energy. Here's what's up next, right? Like in connecting with us that way. And then there wasn't a firm agenda. You did not know what you were doing every day. There was no, like, I kept looking like, I'm like, who's coming? When can I schedule my lunch break? Right? Like I need to eat, right? Like I'm from the Midwest. We like to feed our souls with food. So there wasn't a firm agenda. It was kind of like, here's the topic of the day, but we didn't know all the people that were coming. So we had people like Sarah Blakely that were just popping in and we're getting a text message. Sarah's up next, bring all your energy. But she may not have been up next for the next hour and a half, right? And then it was Don Miller for Story Brand. And like, so it was all these like powerhouse, like founder of Airbnb there speaking on stage. Like, you're just like, what? Who are these people? You're just like bringing in on his helicopter, like, oh yeah, I just called a friend, like to come on over. And the premise was really getting us excited about the things we don't like getting excited about. So the idea was breaking down the stages of business, really working through our mental portion first, then our spiritual, right, and our physical, and how this all ties into business, and then the levels of business mastery that you have to go through, which I'll share some of them today. But the very first takeaway and how he kind of set the stage to get everything started is us understanding the premise of being involved in this event and knowing that you have to separate being from a business owner to a business operator, because that's where all of us many of us fall trap. And he wasn't just talking about the owners. He was talking even about like some of the leaders, right? Like if you're actively the president of a company or something, maybe you don't own it, but being a business operator versus being a business leader. And that really struck a chord for me because I feel like that personally is sometimes where I get stuck. And what the difference is like, can you take this time away? Can you invest in yourself and invest in your business? Because you're never going to be able to grow by trying to do it all in your business while trying to work on it, right? You're gonna max out.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Understood.
Right. You're like, yeah, amen. Right. Like all of us were like, yeah, that's me. And guilty. Right. So it was like, kind of like check out for a minute, like, or check in, I should say here. And let's break through this. And then he is a straightforward dude. It was not like all woo woo sugar, and spices, everything nice. I mean, he was like telling you like it is, dropping some F-bombs and everything else. And just like every story was real. So, but I think that's what all of us needed right there, because all of us are like, oh, it's my business. And, you go in it like all is well, we're selected to be here. It's awesome. And he was like, look, like own your shit, like know where you're at. And one, if you're wanting to grow and you're serious about it, stop hiring employees from the standpoint of hiring people that are just going to do something at your company, like a task, that aren't willing to become leaders in your company. He was like, there's a true difference, because if you are going to be a business owner versus an operator, you need leaders to help run the ship, right? Like run it at the company and really help you to get to that next level. And so he was like, and things that you have to do in order to equip leaders are, one, having a process in place, which this was really good takeaways on how to build that process, but also to stop rewarding just for people showing up. Like he was like, how many of you give raises out because every year and you're just like, yep, you were here, you did your job, without having some consequences of, not necessarily consequences, but more like, here's some goals that you need to own, right? Like if you are going to take on this role, it's not just to do that role. Like I need some growth metrics from you too, because I'm trying to grow this. And if you really want us to succeed too, you need to grow in your role. So holding that people accountable and not just rewarding because of tenure or showing up.
Okay. So,
right?
so breaking something down to a metric tied to the company's growth.
Yeah. And he shared so many examples of this again and again and again about, he's like, it's not who you hire that kills a business, it's who you don't fire. And he was like, a lot of us as owners, we that's the hardest thing, right? Like we want to believe in people and we're like, oh God, if I let them go, then that means there's something else I got to take on. He was like, you need to be quick about it. And really that takes a sense of knowing who your company is at its core and what your culture's about, right? He spoke a lot on like relationship marketing principles. So I'm like, amen. And from the back, like, and then you're speaking my language, but saying like, knowing who you hire from a perspective of understanding who this person is. So he used an example of hiring a sales rep. And he said that like his company hires and they say, we're looking for world-class sales reps. And so they'll put this ad out and they're like, don't call unless you're world-class sales rep. And the person will call and they're like, no, I'm not hearing world-class, and hang up on him. Even if they are. And
even if they are, okay.
Even if they are, no, everybody said minimum 3 times, because he wants the person, like if you're looking for a sales rep, world-class sales rep, he wants the person that's going to call back. Like 2, 3 times, right? And then
right
say, test them, like doing the test. Don't just be so quick to hire, right? So I was like, oh my God, yeah. How many times do you meet somebody's resume, right? Like, and then you're like, oh my God, once they get in, right? Like, and that's the hard part. So really being serious about it, like with your company, that was like the setting the stage. So we all realized like we're a hot mess as business owners. He breaks us down and builds you up. No, it was good though. It was then talking about like then setting the stone from Chad says F-bombs driving points home since 1965. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was surprised like some of his language, but I don't care. Like that doesn't offend me anymore. Like it used like before I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a public speaker, whatever.
Right.
And he was right in a few things, a lot of what he was sharing too, as he's getting into these points. And when I say the way he enrolled us and delivered the message where all of us were very into it, and for me to stay involved and very much connected into somebody's presentation, you got to be good, because I'm like squirrel all over the place, right? And how he did that though, Chad, like even why I think he was using some of this language, he was like, you have to catch people off guard and kind of reset. Not that you're just going to yell the F-bomb to somebody, but you do have to be direct and kind of change the stage, right? And enroll them in the conversation. So he used the NLP techniques. And if you have not heard or experienced NLP, yeah, Stephanie Lou is amazing at this, Tony was the best I've seen. I love NLP stuff. Neuro-linguistic programming is what it stands for. And then there's neurosculpting and some other things you could do, but it's how to get people to connect to you, enroll, and set the, what did he call it? The state or energy, right? Of that conversation. So they're feeling into what you're saying, and you're able to influence them. So like even one of the books, it's kind of funny. I have the team reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I just started reading this again, like a few weeks before I hearing about this event. And I challenged the team to read this book and they would be rewarded for it. And so he was talking about many points in this book. I highly encourage everybody to read this book, but it was talking about the only two ways that you can
drop it in the comments.
Yeah. The only way that you can make someone do something is by them wanting to do it. Like punishing them or like threatening someone or being negative to someone. They use so many studies on how it doesn't get people to want to do something. And usually as managers, like, and team members, we do things because we're in fear of what? Losing our job, right? So he talks about like how to enroll people to want to do something. We're only inspired by two things, and this is going to sound a little crass too, but you're only motivated by two things: your level of importance or sex. Unfortunately. And well, in work, you're only going to be able to motivate people by their level of importance. And so they have to feel important. They have to feel connected. And that's the only way to grow your team members into leaders. So he goes through that NLP process of how to enroll people and how to communicate where they feel like it's their idea. And they feel like they have a level of importance now to where you're trusting them to do this thing. And then they bring it home. Right. So like it was a lot of business smarts, psychology backed, and some strategy ninja-ness to bring it home. So setting the stage of that, right? And then team members, and then just your business overall. So saying now you need to use the same approach with how you're setting up your business. So nobody can buy a brand. You have to earn it, right? And what we talk about here all the time, like you have to get, people are only going to care about companies that care for them and do the same thing. You have to make your customer feel important. They're like, nobody cares about your business started 22 years ago on a farm when you had this idea until they realize how they're important first. And they're making the decision to hire you after. So don't start with that. Start with why you are helping them and why they are important. And then get to some of your story, right? But so often we lead with this story. So I found that really interesting too. Another way of approaching it with psychology backing, and how to enroll your clients into the system. And he really broke that down too, of just like how to lay out your brand, right? The brand manifesto, a lot of the things we talk about here, your why in your manifesto, right? Like knowing your audience personas that we've talked about here, that your business is really just about relationships. Go figure. We love that too. And, and really speaking to what you really are in the business of. So we had us all say, like, Mike, if I were to ask you, what are you in the business of?
And I'm just supposed to.
Yeah. Like, what are you in the business of?
I'm in the business of marketing solutions for businesses, helping businesses market their businesses well.
I love that. Okay. Now, what are you really in the business of? And you guys answered this in the comments. If I'm your customer and you're helping me, what are you really in the business of? That's what you do. What are you really in the business of? And I don't want to put you on the spot, so I can like tell you an example, but just for fun.
Okay. What am I really in the business of? I am
Yeah.
really in the business of helping people, helping
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah. So it's like taking that, you're really in the business of helping people. So like same thing, right? Like we talk about the manifesto, like we talked about on the show. So like before I'd be like, okay, I'm really in the business of relationship marketing. And he's like, if for somebody would say, I'm in the business of real estate. And they're like, that gets 0 people excited, right? Like, but if we were to say, I'm in commercial real estate. They're like, that gets nobody excited. It doesn't say kind of passionately somebody to connect with you and remember that. So it's like shifting from me saying like I'm in relationship marketing versus like I help inspire others to love more, be more, and give more through the art of authentically relating with their audience online using relationship marketing to grow their repeat and referral business, right? Like saying it in a way that's conveying my passion in it and saying what you're really, really in the business of. Like, what are you really in the business of, right? So yours would be like, I could see like definitely helping people. That's its core, but presenting it in like a sexy manner, right? Like of saying to say it passionately, right? So it's like, we've said it on here before. It's like shifting from Martin Luther King saying like, I have a strategy or I have a dream, like using those words that can convey it in a way of like what I'm really in the business of. So like they were talking about, I'm trying to remember some of the professional examples of what they were really in the business of. Oh, they used an eyeglass company. And he was saying like, how there's so many out there. And if you just say I'm in the business of selling eyeglasses, you're going to be you're not remembered, right? Like you don't stand out. You're amongst a sea of samesies. We talked about it on here. Instead of saying like, I'm in the business of fashion, but of course they're going to say it in a different way. You sell eyeglasses, but you're in the business of fashion. Or like,
Yeah.
Disney, they're in the business of experiences, not a theme park, not a movie, like experiences, right? Like, so things like that, really just identifying what you're really in the business of, who you're really in it for, and then how you can present it in a way that really connects on a meaningful level.
Yeah.
So really getting us to think that way so we can understand how we're telling our story, right? And showing up. And this is kind of that marketing pieces. And then it's like the goal setting. So like, what do we want? He's like, in order to reach a goal, you have to know what you're aiming at. And he uses so many examples of how you really had to paint a visual picture of like what your goal is. And he says, so many people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 5, 10, 20 years. Right. Like, and he's talking about Colonel Sanders that went like, to 1,000 places or however many it was and getting this no to sell his chicken and, how he kept showing up and got who he is today. And he even shared a story of a man that went 16 years searching for this treasure on out in the sea. And he just knew that it was there. And he went 16 years. Could you imagine doing something for 16 years, spending a year of your life,
Yes.
just even a year of your life,
Right. 2 years, 3
return,
years.
3 years, like 10 years. He lost a son out in the sea as well with him. He had blown all the investors, burnt relationships. People are thinking he's crazy at this point. And he was like, how long do you think this man would have went out if he didn't get the 16th year, if you're willing to commit that long? They're probably for the rest of his life. So he was talking about like, being wise and knowing what you want, but you have to believe that your goal is true. You have to believe that you can do it and visualize it and keep showing up. So it was really committing to not getting frustrated and giving up in that year, because we overestimate sometimes what we can do in that year and don't give ourselves enough time. But we have to strengthen our beliefs and the legs of those beliefs in order to be able to have that strength to persevere, which was good. I want to jump into some of these comments too. I'm sorry.
I saw Sheila answered that. Hi, Sheila. She answered that question. She's in the people connecting and building relationships business.
Yes, you are. And you are so good at it, Sheila. You are so good at that.
Chad's got one there.
Okay. I can't wait to read this. Okay. I help you capture the stories you didn't know you had that hit your customers right in the feels to the point where they want to buy from you and hug you at the same time. That's why I'm so glad you're helping me, Chad.
That's good.
Hey, Ross Brand. I'm going to give him a shout out too. And Amy says, I'm in the business of reducing the stress associated with social media for life and business coaches to help them grow their business, which gives them time to focus on their clients. Not sexy, but she's going to put some thoughts on that. Speaking of sexy, that was one of the things that it was brought up, and it was kind of like, again, setting the stage. Something is a little taboo to talk about, right, in a big business setting. And he was like, how many people do you think that they're sexy in here? And people are like raising their hands, and so this is messing with people's belief system. So like, Mike, how about I'll do a different one for you? Like, do you think you're smart? So we'll use that
Yes.
instead of sexy. Okay. Why do you think you're smart? Or how do you know?
How do I know? Okay, so I did academically well in school, and I'm able to solve problems in the business world on a daily basis.
Okay. So in school though, like academically well, it was like grade cards or what?
Yeah, great cards.
Would you say that people that got good grades in school are always successful though? Or
Absolutely
smart?
not.
But you think that defines you as smart?
Um,
I'm like, that's
it's
what he was doing.
one. It's an aspect of a measuring tool to measure one type of intelligence.
Yeah. So, but what he was doing, so he used the example of sexy. And the woman, he was like, how do you know you're sexy? And she was like, well, men tell me I am. And he was like, but men are liars, right? And like all of a sudden her face changed, right? And he was using that as an example of saying, unless we got strong beliefs, like if we're using one thing to tell us something that we hold true about ourselves, it can be, and he used the example of like legs of a table. If it's knocked off, that's where we fall down a lot of times. So he is saying like how to really get your beliefs in place and the legs of your beliefs and hold that true and strong so nobody can come off and knock one of the legs out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, and so we had us write down like our core beliefs that are going to keep us going. And this really goes back to again, it's like, what does this have to do with business? It's really like strengthening the mental capacity of you.
Yeah.
And then he talks about strengthening the core of you. Like he's like, if you don't feel good, you're not going to do good, right? Like you're not going to perform well in business if you feel like crap. And so many business operators, are running ragged. We're not taking great care of ourselves, we're not necessarily doing what we need to show up in a way fully that's going to deliver the best results. So we said, and that's usually because we associate like working out and losing weight to not fun. Like I love me some carbs, and I look at dieting or not doing carbs as like, oh, that thing, right? And he was like, then you're always going to go back to that same place that you're at, and which I do. Like I've yo-yoed so much, like with weight, and he was like, you have to reassociate your mindset of how you look at things you don't want to do until you want to do them. That makes sense. So like he said it a lot better. But he was saying like, for example, he grew up really poor and food to him was scarce at that time. So when he was older and he had a full plate of food, he always felt like the need to finish his plate of food. And like dieting to him didn't sound fun. So he had to reassociate pleasure with the sense of like pushing your food away from you. Like you're not having to finish the plate.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know
So
what I
you got to
mean? Like
reassociate some things.
reassociate things.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it is. We bring some
Yeah.
things with us, and some of those need to be unlearned.
For real, Amy, I love me some carbs too. But I love me some salads now. Like I'm working it out. I'm working out my relationship with that.
There we go.
But so okay, so getting the physical right, getting the mental right, and then doing some action steps. He talked about like how many people like love accounting, and I'm like, oh, the size that were coming in the room, everybody's like, whoa, like entrepreneurs usually like are the anti-accountant, right? Like, but he was talking about in business, there's no way that you're going to grow your business until you fall in love with accounting. Accounting is going to be your best friend by the end of this. And he talked about not just having an accountant, you need to have a CFO. Accountant's just going to read the numbers to you. And then what do you get? You get a balance sheet and think you're doing good. That doesn't future predict. That doesn't help you see what's coming in the future.
Yep.
And it's not somebody there to help you predict the future that actually cares about the goals of your business. I'm like, holy bleep, bleep, bleep. Like, I didn't think about that. And that's so true, and you think you're doing good because the only thing you're looking at is, did I make more than I spent?
Right.
Like, and he's like, balance, the only thing that matters is the cash did you actually have, not how much profit or whatever, like how much do you have in the bank. And And I'm like, that's so true. So he was talking about like how we can predict and how to read balance sheets, how to have a dashboard to really understand your financial numbers, and that you, as the business owner, you have to know that stuff and get it more than anyone else, because that's your livelihood, right?
Yeah.
And so you really have to invest in understanding accounting and really
And the
finding a
key
CFO.
indicators, right? Understanding
Mhm.
within your accounting, what are the key
Yeah,
indicators, leading indicators
exactly.
that are telling you where you're going or what's going to
Yeah.
happen, so that you can.
Yeah, and they're like, nobody's gonna hire a pilot that can't read the dials, right?
Right.
Like, so we need to understand how to read the dials,
Right.
and so I took that to heart, because I anything that comes like accounting, it's like when the Lion King, where they're like Mufasa, 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 and the people shiver, like, or the like, that's what I feel like accounting. I used to. I'm working that out too, but I really took that to heart, and that is, I think, the difference, like, right, of how you can grow your business. So talked about this. Oh my God, there's this. I'm not even through one day, people. This was like 5 days, 12-hour days. So I'm gonna hit on just a couple other like quick ones, because I know we're already at time, but he talks about understanding the type of leader you are, because there's three different kinds, right? Like, he's saying, like, you can either be like I remember that, like, there's the entrepreneur leader, so the person that holds the value and holds the vision of the business, and they're the one that gets people fired up, and they're so excited to get into it, and they really help the managers, the people that love managing. So they're the types of leaders that are the manager that just likes the behind the scenes stuff, and hire like the people that are the cheerleaders, right? And then there's another type of leader that, oh gosh, I forget the name of that one, but knowing what type of leader you are, so you can really understand how to be a better leader, right? In your zone that feels most natural to you, because not all of us are going to be the same. And then he talks about building a system. Like, you have to have a system in place for what you do. The only way to grow is if somebody can step in, and you need to systematize whatever you're doing. Um, and that you really do have to work within the plan that you have, and the goals that you set for yourself for the year, but not try to do it all at once. And what I mean by that, and what he was saying, is like, each week, sometimes we're like, okay, here's all of our goals and here's all the things we have to do. And so we talk about it. We don't spend enough intense time on the one thing to really make a difference. So he's talking about all the areas of the business you need to focus on, in the accounting, the marketing, right? The strategy, building in the client delight, and all the steps in your business. So he said the 7 forces of business mastery are knowing where you really are, innovation, world-class marketing delight, the sales systems, anticipating the future by knowing where you're at financially, constant optimization, maximization, and how to create that repeat referral raving fan business. Sound familiar with things we've talked about in here, right? But spending an hour a week, if you just spend an hour a week dedicated to really drilling in one of these things, you will be really surprised in how you grow. Um, and by the way, the other type of manager was skilled producer. So skilled producer, manager, leader, or entrepreneur, the person that's the creator, the keeper of the vision, which that I'm the entrepreneur person. I'm like the woo, I like the woo-woo stuff. Um, and then he talked about
Is he saying you need all three of those types in the business?
no, to find out which type you are.
Find out which type you
Yeah.
are, and to
Mhm.
surround yourself appropriately.
Yeah. So surround yourself with those other skills that you don't have. Like, if
Got
I
it.
know that I'm not someone that's a manager that micromanages, so that's why I hire like managers. So I like that person that's going to check in. I'm just like, you're good. Here's your thing. You're good. Woohoo. I'm going to cheer you on. Right. Like, I'm not like the person looking at the spreadsheet and comparing all the things. Like, that's not me. Right. So I need that person in my life. I need that person that's going to do those checks and balances,
Yeah.
and I'll have the vision, but I need
Okay.
the person that's going to help with the execution of the check-ins, right?
Okay.
So knowing that about yourself really is beneficial. The What other key pieces do I want to? Do you have any questions so far too? I keep like rambling on here about this,
No,
but it
that
was
was,
so good.
I didn't want to make you lose your train of thought, but so that was just one. I was just taking a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, keep
Yeah.
going.
Well, he's also saying like communication, that knowing how to communicate and how little of what we say is actually, and even body language. We all think that it's body language and, the words that we're choosing that is communication, but it's tonality and it's how we say things. And, and there's like, that's why comedians can get away with being like, you're such an asshole. Ha ha, ha, versus if somebody else were to say it that way, like it's going to come off a lot different. And so he was talking about like how to write and using the same art of communication we were talking about enrolling, and even your email communication, even in your text, like even in, everything that you're doing in social. And I'm a huge proponent of this too. I do it all the time in our office, but it was so true just to hear it from a science-backed perspective, psychology-backed perspective, and how to really, if you want to grow your business, 99% of it, and I think it was not quite 99, but I'm going to say a big chunk of it is your communication, and how you're going to communicate and deliver what you're really wanting in your business, through your teams, because that's how you're going to influence your team members to do things. That's how you're going to be able to communicate with your clients to get things done. How you're communicating with yourself and everyone else around you. You have to learn how to communicate appropriately, and that's another area where the NLP comes in. And then the very, very last thing is understand that I'll share for right now, and we'll recap this with the blog. There's so many other stuff and on this, but understanding the life cycle of your business too. And he was talking about, infancy and aging and growth stages, and knowing that the stages that you're in, this is part of like the accounting and getting real with yourself, and knowing what stage you're in will help you innovate and plan for the future. Because he's like, marketing and innovation are the two core components of building a growing brand, and a brand that's sustainable. But you have to be able to anticipate when, in what season that your business is in. And he's like, invest in winter. And winter is the part where people think that they're dying. Like, for example, if your sales are down and what's the first thing that you usually cut? Marketing or
Right.
team members. And he was like, the most profitable businesses in history, and he was sharing example after example, are the ones that invest in winter, because that's when everybody else gets scared. And he was like, you need to know that there's going to be a season for everything. But in winter, that's the last time, or the last thing that you want to do is start cutting your marketing. Is like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, amen. Can I get that on recording, please? And like play that on loop. Like, but he was talking about like keeping the investment and doing the work during those hard times, to where that's when you want to double down when it's hard, not back away. And knowing the seasons and how to anticipate that would go with everything else we talked about, to be able to anticipate what season you're in, know your financials to understand how that's going to ebb and flow, right? And then how to rally around to get everybody in their zone of genius to push through, so you reap the rewards when the springtime comes, and all of that starts blooming again in your business. So just profound, really good stuff. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of it.
Okay, so closing then, what are the top two things you're going to do as you come back in your business?
Innovate. Oh, God, I can't believe I didn't say this other part too. He's like, you have to give value more than anyone else. That's how you stand out, right? Delight. And we talk about that here, but I had to ask myself a real question. Like, okay, I can really say that I feel that we offer the best relationships, but do we have the best value and innovation? Do we, do we make it the easiest? And I had to say, no, I don't know that I do. So I really wanted to say, how can I innovate in a way that's like, dang, like they're good, and anticipate for what the customer needs. And so I wrote out that, and that's the first thing that I'm doing, and really getting real about not just relying on the relationship side, which that's awesome, but really look at innovation, because people want convenience, they want relationships, but they want convenience and people to anticipate their needs before they even knew that they necessarily had it. So making it super frictionless to do business with you. And I had to, ask myself some hard questions and saying, is there some areas that I can improve? And I think there's some areas that we can innovate and be ahead of the curve, and invest during our winter time here in Ohio, and be ready for some serious growth there. hiring a CFO was the second one, and really getting real on how I'm going to set our goals up here in the office, and allowing myself to not have the need to have my hands in everything. Like, my team members got it. They're smart, they're awesome, and setting them with some areas for growth and failure, because failure is going to be the only way that they're going to be able to grow and learn. And I have to be okay with that. And I'm working that out too with the carbs. So
Got it. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Some good stuff. Yeah. Did we miss any comments or anything we need to follow up on?
I was reading through this. So she needs an executioner. Yes, I do, Chad. Yeah. So I don't know. Executioner. Is that the person that like kills people? Is that what that is? Oh, I should know better, Chad. No, I think it was a great event. I want to know, like, if you've been in 20 of the events or any of the events, or if you just heard something that resonated with you, let us know. I would love to put your comments in our recap vlog, especially your comment on what are you really in the business of. I thought that was a good one to really think through. So if you have any questions for me, to let me know. I'm happy to chat it out with you, and excited to be back here. Magnet Marketers, missed you all last week. But yeah, thanks so much for letting me talk about this today, Mike, too.
No, good stuff. I love talking about business strategy, business growth, the structure of business, all these things. So it's just fuels my fire. So that's good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, and keep learning, man. That stuff like fuels you. And if you're out there and you're working that grind every day, you need that thing that's gonna inspire and keep you not more than inspire, help you decide in the moment of how you want to level up and continue to grow. Because I think that we are a community here. Everybody that's joined in with us are a community of gladiators that are going to have an amazing 2020. So thanks so much for joining in with us today. Super excited to share some of the takeaways with you all. And I look forward to catching up with you later this week and seeing you next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Facebook. So thanks so much.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We've expanded. But yeah, see you later.
See you.